Hey everybody, final thoughts time for Near and Far. And actually, I guess these are my second final thoughts because, of course, I did a run through for this back when it was on Kickstarter a million years ago. And you could probably learn a lot about what I think about the game from just watching those. But here's the thing. The game has changed so tremendously, I felt it was worthwhile to do another run through so people can get an idea of what the final game looks like. But now here's the interesting thing. I am not alone today. Oh my God, I've totally forgotten what your guys' name is.
Luke!
Luke and Daniel.
I'm not alone, folks. Luke and Daniel are right over here on my little phone, ready to talk to me about their experiences playing the game. Hey, Luke and Dan, say hi to everyone.
Hi.
Evening.
Yeah, great to be talking to you.
Oh, time of day. Hi. Yeah.
Whenever you're watching this.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, whenever and wherever they might be. Dan and I'm not sure which one, Dan or Luke, one of them is a fan of the show and backed my yearly Rahdo Runs Through fundraiser at the co-host level. And he decided he wanted to get on, which one was it? Was it Dan or Luke?
Daniel. Me.
Daniel, okay. So, Daniel wants everyone to know what he thinks about Near and Far, but before we get to them, I'm going to give you an update on how Jen and I have been enjoying it, because oh my gosh, we have so much. Here's the fundamental thing. I went into this actually very nervous, very trepidatious, because the fundamental change that's gone from the prototype to the final component is the removal of the area control game. And in doing that, the gameplay has been really simplified a lot from what I played before. And in fact, one of the things I loved most about the original prototype was the team management, that every time you recruited a new person to join you, they became the leader of your group. And that meant your group was putting out certain types of camps, and you were trying to have almost an area control element to control different factions, and players were trying to wrest factions from each other. There was a lot more complexity, and quite frankly, a lot more aggression, a lot more naked, I am trying to steal what you have worked for throughout the game. All of that has been removed now. It's much more streamlined, much more straightforward, much more intuitive as a whole. And I gotta say, my worries were for naught. It's a much, much better, stronger game. And Jen and I have been loving this, loving it to death. All the other stuff we really enjoyed, the very, very satisfying building up of artifacts, using those to speed up your race, because this is a race. Everybody's just trying to cross that finish line first. And Jen and I, we've been playing the, what do you call it, the hero, the character storylines, and we're about halfway through, and it's very, very hard to play anything other than this. It's so compelling. But you know what? That's pretty much all I have new to say about the game, and you can hear what the rest of, I think, by going and watching the original video. But guys, you've been very patient. What has been your experience? What do you guys think of Near and Far?
Right, well, the character mode is definitely, I think, the driving force behind it. As I said, I think the first time I played it and I sat down, well, not the first time, because the first time we played that, the map 1, which is like the introductory game. But once we played the first character game, first character mission, it's like, this is a narrative vehicle. This is all about the storyline. This is finding out what happens next, and especially when a decision would split one way, whether it was using keywords or whether it was using the path you go down. Like, I love my story. It was like, I was so into it, but I won't give anything away.
No spoilers.
Yeah, definitely.
No spoilers. Likewise, we haven't played the campaign mode. Let's say that in terms of the campaign, we've played arcade and we've played character mode. Okay. And in terms of the character mode, we've played it 3 players, and we have loved it. Loved it. Loved the narrative that we've explored with the various characters. We would play the character mode again in some ways. So much we've enjoyed it.
Yeah. As I'm looking forward to playing the campaign mode, but the arcade mode was so interesting that it boiled the game down to its core mechanics. And as I said, it was just a pure race. And getting those artifact cards out and making the most of them and getting the tents out, because it was a race to get the tents out, and we played a 2-player, and it was such a fast game in arcade mode, just like racing through it and trying to get those artifact cards out and getting your tents out, and who could do it first, and spread across the land.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I'm kind of curious. I mean, it's interesting you bring up arcade mode. In fact, there's a specific reason I recorded the run-through, which you guys haven't seen yet, playing arcade mode. Well, there's a couple reasons. One, of course, I didn't want to spoil any of the character stuff or the world stuff for anybody who would actually play the game. But the other thing is, I mean, I think arcade mode is actually really kind of important because, when you play that, you strip away all the narrative stuff, and it becomes just about the game. And I think it highlights how strong a game it is. It's interesting. I've seen several other reviews of the game where people have talked about how, there's just not enough meat on the bone without the narrative, or, the game gets in the way. I've come for the narrative, and there's all this other gamey stuff I've got to do. I've seen a lot of really weird, surprising comments about the game. And I wonder if some folks are going into the game with kind of the wrong attitude. Because here's the thing. You need to be prepared to, if you care about winning, which admittedly, I mean, maybe the storyline is so strong and compelling that you kind of lose interest in winning or losing. Who cares about that? I just want to know more about my story. If you don't care about winning or losing, the narrative really takes on. But if you strip that away, in the arcade mode, it shows how strong the game is on its own. The game could exist without the narrative book at all, and it would still be a fun, light Euro race game with definite replayability, because every time you play, you're going to get different combinations of people to recruit, which means different factions to try to monopolize to get the chiefs, different artifacts that you draft for that create an overall strategy that you try to build over the course of the game. And I almost wonder if, when people get this for the first time, if they should not immediately play either campaign or world mode. That they should, the first time they ever play, just play it with arcade so that you can get a feel for the game itself, without the narrative trappings.
We hadn't really thought about that because it's for us, we have found it's a narrative vehicle. And as you said, it's a competitive game. But whether you're playing campaign mode or character mode, you don't want to rush out. You don't almost get all those little books because you want to make sure that everyone is involved in the game. And especially in character mode where everyone has to get at least 2 of their stories completed per game to complete it in a reasonable amount of time, in a reasonable number of games, like the 3 to 4 games before you go into the final map. It's not competitive, even though it's kind of semi-competitive. Yeah. And even in the campaign mode where it's more competitive, kind of, you still want to give everyone the chance to experience the story. So it's like the whole narrative element stops you from going racing out and getting all the stuff, even though, and you focus on the artifacts. You focus on getting more artifacts. So you focus on getting points in other ways as opposed to getting all your tents out or getting all those faction tokens that you usually get from the story. You'll probably get more artifacts out or more treasures through the birds because you're doing other things. But in arcade mode, it is such a light little. I definitely think it's more of an Ameris style game because you're moving freely and then you're rolling to resolve the actions. So I think that's not so much Euro. It's kind of a bit of Euro action selection when you go into the town, but out in the world it's RPG where you're freely moving and then rolling a dice. But it is as completely a race game in arcade mode where the faster you get through those artifact cards and very situational artifact cards, you have to draft because yes, if you need to get the balance of those different ones.
When we played our 1-2 player arcade game, it was in a very short space of time, and we decided we would give it a go and see how it would work out because we've been playing a narrative character mode up until then. And we decided we would just hand out 5 cards to each other instead of drafting, just to save a bit of time. Didn't work. Because the simple fact was, in my hand, I got all the skill cards that I needed.
Well, you got 2 skill cards that you got out very quickly.
Swords.
Then you got swords and hearts and things like that. Whereas I had 1 skill card, 1 sword card, and all my others were very situational, which I'd never get out.
So you have to draft. I think that in most 2-player drafting games, drafting, if you play 2 players, you think, drafting's not going to make a big deal because, it's handing back and forth like that. And you guys just go, I'll just deal out 5 cards. And that's what I thought, but I never realized just how important it was and critical, really, for the game balance that you have to draft. And when we play arcade again, should we play it again?
We'll definitely have to draft.
We'll be drafting. But I agree with you, Ray.
But you to mention them.
I think you've dropped out. I don't hear you guys anymore. Internet. Are you there, guys? I'm looking over at the camera now. Are you back?
We never went away, but we think we didn't go away anyway. But
Okay, I'll edit that bit out. Repeat your last little bit, because I don't know what to say in response to you.
right, well, I was just saying, like, we played the 2-player arcade mode, the 3-player campaign mode, character mode, and you played 4-player base game.
Yeah.
And we found with 2 players, you race out and you get things. 3 players, there's more to do, and 4 players, there's not enough to do.
My experience with 4 players, it was our first game, was that the map was, the town was very crowded. There was a lot more dueling going on, which
We didn't duel a single time.
and it's my personal opinion is I don't like the dueling aspect. I don't like. I mean, I know the person who's there doesn't gain anything, but if you don't succeed, you then have to go to the prison. Yes, you can go anywhere for free, but I'm not the biggest fan of dueling, so I like no more than 3 players. I found that 4 players, the town was too busy.
Now that's interesting. Okay, I want to drill down on this a bit because I obviously have only played as a 2-player game where they effectively emulate a 3-player game because they put a dummy on the board. Now, here's the thing I don't understand, because I've heard a lot of people complain about how dueling is terrible, they can't stand it. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a really great addition to the game, less because it's about trying to ensure you can go to the right place at the right time. It's more a very valuable tool for adjusting your, what do you call it, your, I can't think of the word, your reputation. Either up or down, depending on what you want to do. It's an opportunity to be able to adjust your reputation for free without having to sacrifice resources, without having to sacrifice time. Hey, I was going to do this anyway. If I wait till you're there and then I duel you and go do it, I will also get a reputation bump. So it's getting something for nothing. And I think it's actually very, very interesting to try to leverage. I would often find myself, if I had built a team that was going to do well in a duel, because I can see that I've got more, more swords than you. I would actually, I could go there now, but you know what? I think I'll wait because I'm hoping Jen will go there, because then if I go there and I beat her in the duel, I'll still do what I want to do anyway, but I'll get free reputation, which translates directly to points. And so I would think that, how many places? There's like 7 or 8 places in town, 7 places to go in town. Even if everybody is in town, that's only 4. So, there are, taking yourself out of the equation, there are always 4 places in town you can go if you don't want to duel. And they're all useful places if you can time it right, if you can figure out,
if you can time it right.
If you can, I suppose the general store we don't find ourselves going too much unless it's a very specific thing you're going there for. The mine you go there at specific times. We found that the treasures and the hatchery, depending on whether you have the food or the gems or not, they're situational.
Situational.
So it's the places you're going to, like the saloon you can always go to for free anyway, and you can't duel there anyway.
Yeah.
So as I said. But I found myself going to the saloon and thinking I could win a duel. And I've done that before, that whole, you said, the reputation modification for free. And I've gone there specifically to
lose.
Well, not to lose, but to lower my reputation.
Yeah.
And then you lose. You still lose. And you're like, I had more swords and I still lost because you rolled a 6. And now I'm in prison. But at least on the advanced side of the board, I think you get a food or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, if you go to prison.
Yeah, you get a food.
Like. For the record, I don't know if I said this in the run-through, but I would strongly recommend anybody checking this game out. From your first play till your last play ever, always play on the advanced side. There is no reason in the world to play on the basic side.
No point. No point.
No, the advanced side is the better side. It's much more... Even though there's only a few different changes, like in the mine, the extra reputation, the minus points for the reputation, and the draw 3 treasures instead of 1.
Right,
As
yeah.
draw 3 pick
Yeah, well, that is the biggest deal, the treasures. And also, if you go to jail, you still get something. That is huge as well. You know, it's funny you should mention that. Your sad tale of woe. Believe me, I've been there myself. I have filmed myself doing it when I did my original run-through. I agree. And you know what? I mean, it comes back to the dice. You were talking about that a little bit earlier, too, how there's like a little bit of Ameritrash stuff in here with the dice. I have to admit, the only thing keeping this game, for me, out of the upper echelons of game of all time is the reliance on roll to resolve. I'm really, I think, again, it's another huge improvement from the, what?
I don't like roll to resolve, and when I was like, I needed this. Why? My issue is if your points go from about 1 to 6 max out. You know, you've got your 4 characters plus you'll have 2 artifacts. If it's going from 1 to 6 max, then the random element should be half that. It should be a D3, like a dice with 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s, not a complete 1 to 6, because you can get a 12, or if you've got, or a 7, or you can get literally. Even if you've maxed out your guys, you only get a 7.
Yeah, he hates D6s in that way because of the randomness.
That's exactly where I was going with this. I mean, I understand why the dice are there. I appreciate that, you know, they add an extra flair and excitement and variance and all that. But dueling D6s is painful. A while ago, I did a run through for a cooperative deck builder called Battle for Greyport. I don't know if you guys saw that run through, but it's another game. It's a fantasy fight the bad guys thing, and there's a lot of rolling dice to see if you hurt the bad guys. And the brilliant thing about that game, I never appreciated before I played it. It comes with custom D6s. I forget exactly what they were, but they were like 1 2 2 3 4 4. 1 2 2 3 4 4 or something like that, or 1 2 3 3 4 5. I mean,
custom distributions.
Exactly. That's the term, I guess. Those dice, even though I was doing the same thing I've done in a million different games and I've hated with a passion, rolling dice and, I hope this works out. As soon as I was rolling those dice, where there was a probabilistic curve, I could make actual real plans because, statistically, there's a 50-50 chance that I'm going to, pull a 3 off of this. It's the same way that if you're rolling 2 dice in Catan, you're more likely to get a 7. So you plan everything around the 7 and then you see what you get. The same thing with these. If this game came with, what was that term again? What'd you call it?
Custom distribution dice.
Custom distribution dice? Oh, that would be amazing. I would love that. And heck, if the game came with different ones, then you could even go down the road of having artifacts that let you choose one custom distribution die or another.
If different characters allowed you to get different dice or something like that.
Yep. Or the more swords you have, you get to upgrade to better dice. Or there's a million ways it could have gone. Now that's one way I would have loved to have seen it. The other way I would have been equally happy to see it would be, there's another way that I actually enjoy roll to resolve. And you've seen it in Legend of Andor. You've seen it in Feast for Odin. You've seen it just recently in This War of Mine. A push your luck element. Where, I have to roll the D6, and I hope it works out for me. But in these other games, what you do is, no, you're going to get to roll 3 times. And roll. Do you not like your result? Okay, try again. Roll. Oh, that second result's okay. That's a 3. Maybe I should live with that. Or do I roll again and hope to get something better? And then I have no one but myself to blame when it goes down and it becomes a 2 or a 1. That would be amazeballs. That would put this game through the stratosphere. Because then, every time you have to roll dice would be fun and exciting as opposed to, well, for Euro folks like myself and it sounds like you guys, a bit of a chore. A bit of a, right, okay, let's see what the dice do to me now.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see
what happens.
It's like, we rolled a 3. Do I spend the hearts? And you always spend the hearts.
Yeah, it's that those hearts. You're always going to spend the hearts. And I think that's one of the things.
Now, see, actually, that comes back to an earlier thing. I strongly disagree, and that's why I'm suggesting people play for the first time without narrative. Because I agree with what you're saying. When Jen and I first started playing this, yes, like everyone else, we will always spend the hearts because there's too much writing on it to fail at a quest or at a story snippet. Because I got to get the story. Here's the thing. you don't gotta get the story. You don't have to succeed at it if you adjust your attitude for, it's less about, the long term, after I've played this game 10 times and I find out what the deep, dark secret of my soul is, and more about, right, I'm trying to win right now. Because after Jen and I, the first time we played with the arcade cards, we realized, you know what? Forget it. I am not spending. I'd love to hear what the next chapter of my personal development story is, but I also want to win. If I spend those hearts, chances are I'll get a buck and maybe a crystal. If I instead don't spend those hearts so I can set a camp, I'll win the game.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
A race through those again. Arcade mode is such a different game. It's a race through those 14 camps. The first person to get those 14 camps out there, you've got it.
Well, out there in the world, or out there on enemies, because you place them for fighting enemies, or the mine, and that's the thing. I think the gameplay is better if you jettison the narrative. The overall experience is better with the narrative. The narrative definitely enhances the quality of the game.
Agree that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. After Jen and I were able to take a step back from the narrative and realize, wow, there's so much more to this game. There's much more interesting decisions to make. And then we started using the narrative again. I think at this point, we're actually playing the game the way it's truly meant to be played. Where, yes, of course I care about the big epic story, but I also don't want to lose. And so then every decision about whether to spend those hearts or not becomes that much more interesting. And I brought all this up because, again, I've seen some people, some reviewers who I really, really respect, seem to just kind of have this weird response to the mismatch of Euro-style resource management and narrative-driven experience. And I think that's because, heck, no pun included, came right out and said it. I bet you no one will ever not spend the hearts, like you guys said. And if you're playing like that, I think you're hurting the best potential way you could play it is, yes, of course I want to hear the story, but of course I want to win, and finding a meld. And that's one of the things that makes this game so interesting and so different, really, than any of the other narrative-based games out there. And it's something I really, it's another level that I appreciate it on now. And that's why I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying you have to, because I know everybody's going to want to get into those stories as fast as possible. But just put those to the side for a bit, and you'll see there's actually a really fun, solid, not a super heavyweight game. This isn't going to, it's not going to knock Kalis off of anybody's top 10 list or anything like that, or whatever. But it's a much more compelling game when played with the right mindset. And it's just weird how the narrative almost gets in the way there. It's a strange and surprising thing I found.
I was curious because one of the reasons why I wanted to play the arcade mode is because of the game Braveguard out at the moment. And that just has the cards, a bit like the arcade cards. It's like, you're at a bridge. Do you build it or do you figure out something else? It's like, it's only 2 decisions and you're doing those skills. And it's the same on the arcade cards, 2 decisions. But it was such I think we played the 2-player arcade mode in like 30 minutes. It was like such a...
Yeah, 35 minutes.
A totally different game experience to the narrative experience where you do want to get... And you're like, I spent almost a good 5 minutes going, do I do this mission? Or like, because when the quests divide, you're like, where's this going to lead me down? Or where's this going to lead me down?
Yeah.
It's a different game.
It's a very different game.
But it was fun. It was interesting.
It was a lot of fun playing the arcade mode. To some extent, I would choose to play arcade mode.
But we haven't gone back and played the character mode after playing arcade mode.
Yeah.
And I wonder, would our experience be different?
I think we'd be more ruthless in character mode.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning earlier about how, when you played it with higher player counts, that the duel mode just gets in the way. It's just like, do I have to go through this? The town's so crowded. This is getting in the way of my narrative. That's what I'm here for. And I'm suggesting, no, the duel is really important to the gameplay. Being able to use that and leverage it. And if you want to stay away from it, and timing it, going back to town at the right time. There's always places you can go. It's not like the town is completely filled up. And I think if you can compartmentalize, I want to hear the narrative, I want to have a great story, I'm looking forward to that, but I've also got to play this game. I think that's when it really comes alive. And I absolutely love it. If it weren't for the dice, if Ryan Lockett had just done something a little bit more interesting, just a scooch, more interesting with the dice, I mean, this game would just be, forget about it, best of all timesville. You know what, another thing actually I want to complain about.
Complain about the dice.
I mentioned earlier about how, for the most part, the game, even though it's gotten simpler because the area control element is gone with the factions and all that, there's one thing I really, really miss from the original, and that is the fact that in the prototype I played, if you did not finish an artifact, you lost 3 points, not 1. Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's just not that big a deal. If I guess I'm not going to get this artifact. It's certainly not worth the trouble to go to Town Hall to get rid of it to save myself losing 1 point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before, when you would lose 3 points, and the other thing is, you'd lose 3 points, and to get rid of it, you go to the Town Hall, you can still get rid of it, you would have to pay a gold to get rid of it.
Because when we played arcade mode, one of those situational cards that I had in my hand that I wasn't going to get out in the arcade mode was to make the artifact card, the incomplete artifact cards, not give me minus points. And it was like, okay, I lost minus 3 points. That's not going to be, in the grand scheme of things, with the tents, the arcade cards I did get, and all the other stuff, the minus 3 points wasn't going to be a big deal.
No, it's not worth spending a whole action to go to the town hall to get rid of minus 1 point.
Well, yeah, it becomes a thing that you do. Oh, I'm already at the town hall anyway. Hey, while I'm here, should I get rid of this thing? Yeah. Before, in the old game, you were scared of your artifacts. Because it was a noose around your neck. I mean, you started out basically 21 points in the hole if you didn't get these things built. And if you want to get rid of them, you got to pay to get rid of them.
Oof.
And that was, you say oof, but I say oof in a good way.
Yeah, it's a more interesting decision. Yeah. Far more interesting decision. Exactly. Yeah. No, I like that,
there's
actually.
a puzzle to solve.
Yeah, exactly.
What to keep, what to get rid of. Yeah.
So I have to admit, I really kind of miss that. I'm almost inclined to, I don't know why Ryan made that change. I guess it was really just to try and make the game a little bit less hardcore. Because obviously this has a very broad appeal. A lot of people are going to love this because a lot of people are going to come and saying, look, I'm just here to get the stories. I don't want to have to deal with all this crap of really punishing artifact building. I just want to hear the funny stories.
I think that's brilliant. I think the stories are interesting. I think it is, the game has been very simplified, as I said, compared to what it was with area control and all those. It is, the game, even though it still has that D6, the game mechanics are quite streamlined, and it seems to be about the campaign mode and the character mode. And how old is Caleb? He's 6, isn't he? He's read the stories, and any child who has any reading ability can read those stories. Even he wasn't playing the game, but he got to read the stories. And I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah, that's how he gets involved. My son, he will sit with us while we're playing, and he will open up the book and ask to read the stories.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's, you see, for us, that's a way we get him involved in the gaming. He's not a big board gamer, but he really enjoys the stories, the narrative element. Whereby when we were playing arcade mode and there was nothing, no stories,
quick. It was like, bang.
He just walked away and said, "I'm not going to stay."
But you have that, so I think that game is there in this shape of it's a narrative vehicle, and then you've got the arcade mode. But I think you could build on it, like we've seen, above and below, the mechanisms, the interacting mechanisms are there, and Ryan can do them. And obviously in the prototype with area control and all that, there's obviously an advanced version of Near and Far that could come out for us, easily with expansions. The game could go from its nice simple narrative vehicle to a seriously heavy, meaty game.
Far weightier game.
Far weightier experience.
Yeah, more like what it used to be.
More like what it used to be. The advanced version. He could release it when he releases the mine expansion. We like the game.
Yeah.
I've got very limited shelf space. It's my copy of the game. And I have to always weigh up. Something comes in, something has to go out. The usual tale of a board gamer. Exactly. And I'm at the point now where I go, right, I'm waiting for Empires of the Void 2 his next game, you know.
So you have
And
4 Ryan Lockett.
I'll have the
Yeah.
4 games, and one of them are going to have to go. You know, so, and unfortunately, I say this, I'm probably going to let Near and Far go.
Unless
But I know!
with the boy, the reading and the stories.
My wife enjoys Above and Below more.
Really?
Yeah.
There's more there. Like I've watched Above and Below, and I've like I can go, oh, that's interesting. That works. Oh, is that going to happen there? Are you going to get that now? There's just it doesn't have. Again, it's more like arcade mode. The stories are just there, and you know, with those arcade cards, you know, they all have a title. You can make up some story. It's the same as rolling a dice.
I come back to it.
I wonder if Near and Far is suffering, even for you guys, even fans of it, that you know, because you're led by the siren song of the narrative, that you're missing out on some of the game. And you're right, Above and Below, the narrative is there, but it's nowhere. I mean, it's much more about the game there.
Much more about the game,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think in some ways, and I know this is like a bit of a diverge, my wife prefers the gameplay of Above and Below over the gameplay of Near and Far. She doesn't like the racing, competitive mechanic that is the core of the Near and Far game, whereby the Above and Below game is more gentle. There's less competition,
It
less.
does give you more time to think about. Will I get that pottery, the fish, the building, the
Yeah, so there is that. So I have to choose, and unfortunately, I say this as much as I love the game.
I'll have to buy it off him. Or something.
You'll have to buy it off him.
So it won't go very far.
It won't
yeah.
go very far. It won't go very far.
It'll still be in the neighborhood.
It'll still be in the neighborhood. Exactly.
Especially if we get more expansions for it, because the replayability is there. I mean, the arcade mode is a lovely little race game, so I think I'd almost keep it just for that. But if any expansions came out to make the game add on, like the expansion to Above and Below, that the characters could have conditions, that there was the supplies type things. There's so much of the area control. There's so much that could be added to Near and Far. So I'm happy to keep it in the vicinity, because I think it could go places, and I'm so happy to play the quick, fast. I said 30 minutes to get this quick race game with this interesting, quick, what is it? I'm going to do a skill 5 or a combat 7. Roll the dice.
Roll the dice. Absolutely.
All right.
So there's my final thoughts. I give it 2 thumbs
Yeah,
up.
our final thoughts.
2 thumbs up.
But just not enough shelf space.
Definitely.
And I will add, it's definitely staying on my shelf. It's interesting. This or Above and Below? That's a really interesting call. At this point, I'm keeping both. And Islebound. But I've got probably bigger shelves than you guys.
Islebound is such a different game, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Islebound's very different. The wife enjoys Islebound and Above and Below more than she enjoys Near and Far. So I have to make that decision.
Yep, those are the tough executive decisions. Those are the tough calls. You gotta make.
Tough calls one has to make.
Cool. Okay, guys, I think that's it then. We're going to wrap it up. I don't know, do you guys have any shout-outs you want to do before we go?
We will give a shout out to Victor Gannon and the crew that run NaveCon in Limerick in Ireland.
They run it twice a year in the Castletroy Park Hotel. If anyone's ever in Ireland, usually around April and September, you got to come to Limerick. It's this awesome game convention, and they've got Boris, who does the kids section, and everyone brings their games library, so all the games you could ever want to play are up on a table waiting for anyone. The guys from Galway bring their donuts, Dungeons and Donuts. They are the most awesome donuts I've ever seen. We're talking about Cookie Monster donuts and everything. I mean, there's literally there's rashers on donuts.
Bacon on a donut.
Bacon's on donuts, cookies on donuts, the jelly sweets on donuts. Yeah, NaveCon.
Kind of American, actually.
It is a bit, yeah.
It is a bit.
Yeah, Victor Gannon, NaveCon. If you're ever in Ireland in April or September.
Well, tell you what, if you're in Ireland around April time, check it out. I'll put a link for it down in the show notes so you can learn more. I'm sure they must have a website for the...
They've got a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Or a Facebook page. Yep, I'll put a link for it down in the show notes for people who want to check it out. And that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Have a very, very nice day. Talk to you later. So long. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.